This interview is brought to you in association with Rabobank.
Hello and welcome to another Rural Delivery online interview. I'm Roger Bourne and today I'm joined by Simon Limmer, Chief Operating Officer at Zespri. Simon, thanks for joining us.
No problem, Roger. Good to be with you.
Look, gangbuster season, $1.9 billion. That's a big number. Can you just talk us through what actually sits behind it in terms of the volumes of product and where they've gone?
Yeah, so we've been seeing really strong growth over the last handful of seasons, particularly out of the recovery process, out of the PSA timeframe. And so it's driven predominantly by gold volumes. And so this year we're talking around about 45 million trays of gold. That's a record for us by quite a long way. It was around 30 million trays of gold pre-PSA times. But we've also seen really strong volumes of green as well. Productivity was up 15% last season in the 1.9 billion. We've seen another 15% productivity driven this year as well. So very much a supply story. But the good news is that the market end demand is very, very strong as well.
Well, it would appear that you've actually managed to achieve that holy grail, almost a near-perfect balance between supply and demand. Zespri is a marketing company, not a producer in its own right. What are the things that a fruit marketer these days has to get right to achieve the sort of success that you're achieving for your growers?
Well, I think you've got to be relentlessly focused on the consumer, understanding what they want and responding to that. And in the fruit industry, that's not such an easy, direct sort of a relationship as it would be with manufacturing. But ensuring that the signals are flowing back really strongly to growers, I think the advantage that we have in Zespri, whilst we are a very pure sort of a marketing organisation, we're 100% grower owned and we're predominantly grower governed, which means that we never lose focus on what the grower needs, but it also gives us the opportunity to send those signals back from the market. So taste and health and quality are all of the things that consumers are looking for, innovative new products, and our ability to match those to grower signals and in fact to grower payments really serves us pretty well.
Now, we should mention there, actually, when we talk about new products, the gold that you're talking about isn't the gold we know from the past. That got hit hard by PSA. You've got a new one, and I don't want to underdo your role in direct connection with growers because you are an enormous breeder and you had an enormous program that ran from 2010 onwards to help growers manage PSA. What's been the role of Sun Gold in that recovery?
Well, it's been absolutely fundamental. It hasn't been the complete solution, but we know that Hort 16A had been phenomenally successful and it had transformed kiwi fruit through the 2000 to 2010 period. So we knew that the opportunity for gold was significant, and that kept us moving forward. We'd invested heavily in the innovation program and in the breeding program, which meant that we had a suite of a handful of golds which were going to be the next generation. PSA came along and that was unforeseen. We hadn't planned for PSA tolerant varieties, but Sun Gold had characteristics which thankfully allowed us to continue to grow gold in a PSA environment. It wasn't the only element. There were of course a lot of grower innovation, new management techniques, new technologies which came out of it. But without Sun Gold, we really would have struggled. And today we're reaping the benefits, I think, of hanging in there, having a breeding program and having a very cohesive grower base.
What is the balance these days in terms of volume between green and gold across the industry?
It's about a 60-40 balance as we sit here today. But our expectation is that there's a lot more potential for gold going forward. In the global market, green kiwi fruit and Hayward, the traditional green that we know, makes up by far the bulk of what consumers are eating when it comes to kiwi fruit. It's probably 90% plus. But we know that gold, with its taste attributes, its health attributes, just a different look, attracts a lot of new consumers to the variety. So we see potential for gold as going, to go a lot further, and potentially in the future we might expect to see gold being a bigger proportion of our crop than green.
And new greens coming online as well, though, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Hayward has been a fantastic product, and that's what kiwi fruit's been based on. However, it's a product which is a little bit variable when it comes to taste. So we work very hard out of New Zealand to try and mitigate that. But there are new green products which have really strong taste characteristics as well as productivity, which we think are going to attract also new consumers to kiwi fruit also. So that's important for us.
Is there any precedent for that, for a single group of growers or country or organisation effectively reinventing the entire product that a consumer perceives in a category.
Look, I'm sure that there are in the fruit industry. I guess there've been a few examples, and pineapple's probably one that we've seen. I think what we see out of New Zealand is that we have to be a premium product, that we have to position ourselves at the top end of the market, which means that we need to be very, very consumer focused. And so the cohesion of our industry allows us to do that. I think the long-term investment and innovation is also paying dividends, that it's allowing us to bring new products which are going to respond to those consumer needs. So I think Zespri is relatively unique, and the New Zealand kiwi fruit industry is unique. When you look at other fruit industries around the world, I think we just have that focus. We only do kiwi fruit, and we really do make sure that we've got our compass pointed strongly towards the market.
When you talk about consumers, you've got a global consumer. So you've got consumers in Shanghai, you've got consumers in Belgium, you've got consumers in the UK. How do you actually take a product out in New Zealand and make sure that that delights everyone? Because those are quite different markets in terms of the consumer.
Yeah, they are, and we spend, we invest a lot, pretty significant research annually just to understand what they are. After I've spoken a lot about taste, the health attributes as well are very important to us. The convenience of kiwi fruit and that it's ready to eat, so that the consumer can pick it up out of the fruit bowl and know that they're going to have a satisfying experience. We spend a lot of time just understanding what the consumers around the world are looking for. We know that Japan's different than China, which is different than Belgium. And there are different techniques and management practices that we can put in place through the supply chain just to make sure that we're responding to that. So, it is an important focus for us. Again, our focus on just kiwi fruit allows us to be very, very specific in that regard.
China has been a big part of your growth, and I understand it now sits around about 20% of your market by volume. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's grown pretty quickly in the last decade from near nowhere, but about 20% today. So it is, along with Japan, they sit pretty much neck and neck, our biggest volume market, and becoming our, one of our strongest value markets also.
Is there a point at which you're going to say, that's enough for China, we want to be exposed somewhere else? There's a lot of talk across a lot of New Zealand industries about what's an appropriate level of reliance on that market.
Certainly, that's something that preoccupies our board, regularly. We know the complexity of doing business in China. It's not an easy place, but it's a place that you can't ignore. Just the sheer size of it, the ability to move volume into that market, and more the discerning consumer in China means that it's a very strong value proposition for us as well. We're pretty comfortable at about 20%. We'd probably go further than that. But the good thing for us at the moment is that we're able to develop demand ahead of supply in a number of different markets, which gives us option, gives us choice. So, we're seeing strong growth in Southeast Asia. We're seeing opportunity in North America, India, the Middle East, a lot of these markets which are very undeveloped. If you look at our portfolio today compared with how it was 10 years ago, we just have a much better balance of markets around the world, which gives us choice and mitigates risk for us. So China, really important, and will continue to go very, very aggressively into that market, but it's not the only market that we're reliant on, that's for sure.
Now, you are looking at potential to grow in market in China. You already grow in market in other places around the world. What sort of lens are you looking through when you say, hey, how could we do that? Because that would be a very big step.
Yeah, it's a very complex question for us. It's a very controversial one in terms of the role of China and the risk from a production perspective. As I've already said, China is our most important market, and it will be our biggest growth market going forward. We want to be very strong in China in terms of the relationships we have, the roots that we put down. We want them to go deep, and China to be a very long-term market for us. China also produces more kiwi fruit than the rest of the world put together, so it's a big kiwi fruit producer, and they are already established as strong kiwi fruit consumers. So that makes sense to us from a 12-month perspective, that we should be considering what China could mean from a production perspective. Could we brand a product out of China with a Zespri brand? And so the sort of guarantees that we need around that are, of course, very clear around food safety, around food quality, and around consumer perception. So we're stepping through it. We're taking our time. We're developing relationships, scientific relationships, of course, commercial relationships up there, understanding the agronomics, understanding the supply chain. Sometime in the future, we will make a call as to whether we do see this as a viable growing proposition for us. We just expect that over time they're going to get better and better at what they do. It will become an export production region in the future. So it's logical for us that there will be a tipping point that China is appropriate.
What are the limits, Simon, to growth for Zespri overall? Are they limits to the size of the market, or are they limits to what you can really effectively feel that you can produce and handle at the sort of quality levels that you operate within?
In the primary sector, I guess we're always driven by the seasonal aspects of it and what we produce. We have a very clear understanding within Zespri that our job is to drive demand ahead of supply. To a certain extent, we know what sort of supply we've got coming at us year on year. We can do that through the licensing process for gold, but of course productivity in green has been a significant driver. 30% productivity gains in the last 2 years is significant. And that's quite a lot of kiwi fruit for us to be getting off to market and ensuring that we're getting good returns at the same time. But we believe that there is so much more potential for the kiwi fruit category, and we believe that something like Sun Gold and new varieties coming through will also drive consumer demand, market development, but attracting new consumers to a product which they're still relatively unfamiliar with. So the health attributes of kiwi fruit, the taste benefits of kiwi fruit as well really are driving consumer demand. So we believe that there's still a lot of scope for us to develop the category and grow demand.
When you say grow demand, is that at the expense, I mean, I guess it's probably going to differ between markets, but is that at the expense of other fruits? Are you bringing in new consumers? Are you displacing other types of healthy eating? Do you have a picture as to where you're going in terms of growing the category?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I think it's something that we're still trying to understand a little bit more deeply. I think we of course think of our market share in terms of global kiwi fruit consumption, but I think more and more understand that we're not really just competing against kiwi fruit, and particularly gold kiwi fruit is something which is positioned alongside other tropical fruits, other really healthy products which consumers are choosing. So just understanding where we sit in that regard is important to us. Of course, many people are eating kiwi fruit on a daily basis for its health attributes. So they will be choosing that not necessarily because it's a kiwi fruit or because it's a fruit. It's because of the health benefits that it delivers to them. So just understanding that situation is really important to us because, as I say, it's only 0.5% of the global fruit bowl, but just understanding what it could be is a pretty significant challenge.
Simon, it's an amazing story. Thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you can continue to go from strength to strength.
Thanks, Roger.
All the best.
This interview was brought to you in association with Rabobank.